Okay, you're live.
Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled Infrastructure Committee meeting. It is Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. I am sitting in for Councillor Fish, who is the chair of this committee. I am Councillor Dean. On the committee, we have Councillor Walker, Councillor Leonard, Councillor Beck. We're also joined by Councillor Mallard, Councillor Hawes, Councillor Balloon, and we are joined by Amanda Smith, Director of Water Quality Management, and our city engineer, Jefferson Davis. We're going to start with some sewer use abatement summaries for the calendar year of 2025. Amanda will be presenting that.
Yes, good evening. Amanda Smith, Director of Water Quality Management. The first item is,
Excuse me. We also have Carolyn Fish via Zoom, correct?
No, I think she was only going to join GovOp.
Oh, she's not here. Okay, I just wanted to do so.
We're gonna change that too.
Never mind. I didn't want to leave anyone out.
Into the glare.
yeah, this first item is a summary of our annual sewer use abatements. According to our sewer use ordinance, we do offer abatements for sewer usage for certain purposes, usually accidental purposes like leaking plumbing. And also according to our ordinance, we bring summaries to the committee, and any abatements that are applied for in excess of $3,000 also individually come to the committee for approval. So there's no action needed on this item. It's just for your information and if you have any questions.
Any questions from council? I think my bill looked like it needed to be abated. Last quarter.
You may want to look into that.
I might have a running toilet or something.
Mhm.
Just a general question.
Sure.
Now, like for DES properties, it says they have 13,412.72. What's their normal charge for a period of time?
I don't have theirs in particular, but the way that their abatements, these abatements are all calculated is when they receive a high water bill, they'll get a water bill from the water district, a notice that they have high usage. Generally, their sewer bill will be even higher than that.
Right.
We go back and we look at their prior 4 quarters and take their average, and that's what we abate it down to.
But
No, we don't go below the minimum bill, but we will.
no, I understand that, but I'm just saying, it seems to me if I got a $13,000 bill, I would have been jumping up and down trying to figure out what happened. Does this run more than 1 quarter? Is my question. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you've let your bill accumulate more than 1 quarter, then you don't deserve an abatement.
So our sewer use ordinance does limit it generally to 1 quarter.
Okay, so you're saying this 13,000 was for 1 quarter?
This 13,000 actually came before the committee because it exceeded the $3,000 threshold. So I don't recall the specifics on that one. The instances that we would abate more than 1 quarter generally are if the property owner was taking action to remedy it and it took them. In fact, one of the ones we're going to go over tonight rolls into 2 quarters, but they had a plumber working and took action. And then there's a period of time that they need to wait to see and have the water district make sure that their usage went back down to normal. And sometimes it doesn't. So they might find a problem, do a repair, wait, have the water district come do another reading and find out that it didn't remedy. They're still in a high use situation. And then they have to have a plumber come back out, do more repairs.
We don't have a way of checking to see if they have a leak.
The city does not, no, that's.
No, we don't
the
require
property
them
owner.
to do that either.
Yep,
The property owner.
yes. And they would not qualify for an abatement if they weren't pursuing, generally hiring a plumber to find.
I just can't figure out how anyone could go 2 or 3 months and not realize they were having an issue.
Oftentimes, that's more the case with apartment buildings where there's multiple units because it becomes more challenging to track down every plumbing issue.
That's why you have managers. Thank you.
So we can move right into the next agenda item, our 2 abatements that exceed $3,000. The first one is for 68 Mount Hope Ave. It's fairly run of the mill. It meets all of the criteria in our sewer use ordinance. It's just that the consumption was high enough to push it over the $3,000 mark when we look at their average consumption. But our recommendation, and we've provided all of the backup, is to approve the abatement.
And do you need a motion on this?
I believe that's a motion, yeah.
Do you have any questions regarding this proposed abatement?
Just a question on this one. So it puts it here, what steps were taken to repair the cause of the water loss? It says no repairs for water damage, just excessive water usage.
I think that was a case of someone misunderstanding what the application is asking. So we're not concerned about what they've done to repair water damage. We're only concerned that they've repaired whatever the cause of the water loss is.
Okay, so they fixed it, then this is not an ongoing thing.
Right.
Okay,
This is a rental unit, right?
Yes, I believe this is a rental unit.
I think we need in the future to look into management of rental units because I'm not in favor of abating it. If you had a toilet running 24/7, you have an issue. If your manager doesn't check things out on an occasion and he sees something like, I don't understand why we forgive and forget.
So that is also a condition in our sewer use ordinance, is that if we find that we're getting multiple requests from property owners, we can then, that will trigger code enforcement to go in and do a property maintenance inspection.
for this particular property owner, they don't have a history of this. This is like their first time?
That's right.
Okay.
If there were a history, that would be noted here for you.
Well, in all fairness to the property owner, I mean, sometimes you have young kids that are renting, they don't have any idea what's going on. I mean, they can hear something running and they wouldn't even, they don't pay the bill, they don't know. So I would be in agreement that if this is a one-off, hopefully it won't happen again. Any other concerns? Oh, sorry.
I'll just
Sorry,
make
Bill.
a motion to accept staff recommendations proposal for an abatement on this property.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Let's go to council.
No, this
This
wasn't.
will just be handled. Very good. We'll go with staff recommendation. You have another.
Yes, the other is actually a business. And this is a situation similar to what you mentioned earlier, where it went beyond 1 quarter. So the abatement amount total is $4,353. The reason that staff recommends approval is because they have provided evidence that they had a plumber out there to make repairs, and repairs were made and then found as we moved into the 2nd quarter that they still had high usage. Had a plumber come back out, found additional issues, had them repaired, and we were able to confirm with the water district that the usage is back to normal.
Any questions?
I'm not as forgiving as you are.
I follow the ordinance.
Move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any questions or concerns? We will move staff recommendation for the second abatement. And now we have exciting biosolids review.
It is exciting.
Oh, I
This
think
is
so.
now something completely different. I'm not going to read everything that I put in the memo verbatim. Biosolids is a very technical, detailed, and long history topic. We're going to need to talk about this a lot in the next year. The state of Maine and really nationally, we are headed toward a cliff when it comes to biosolids. So tonight, I just want to make sure that we start at an elementary level and talk about what biosolids are, where we've been, and where we're at right now, because I'm going to have to start bringing options to the committee one at a time as far as what potentially we can do about biosolids. So, with no further ado, I know the weather has not been warm enough for you to come take a tour of the treatment plant. Since the new counselors have come on board, and some of you just haven't had a chance to, so I've brought the treatment plant to you. And I brought it to you for a reason. Because I want you to intimately just take a look at this and take note of the texture. It's very important to understand the texture of biosolids. You know, it's easy for me to come in here without this and just say, we operate a sewer treatment plant and we have to remove solids, and those solids need to be landfilled. But this is such a complex issue. And we're going to talk about a lot of options for what to do with this. Actually, not a lot of options. A few options of what we can do with this, but it's going to be very important for you to just understand what the consistency is of biosolids. It's completely sterile on the outside. Just don't crack the jar.
I was gonna say.
Should taste.
that. You're going to taste it.
Amanda, can we not eat it all?
That's been looked into. It has been looked into. So there are so many challenges because it is something that has so many potential beneficial uses. But then there are some issues with it that we'll talk about. So biosolids, our wastewater treatment plant for Bangor, we treat everything from Bangor, Hamden, and Herman. 9.5 million gallons a day of raw sewage. And essentially, that is what we have taken out of it. So that in that jar is everything that all of us sitting here at the table have done to our drinking water. And we're down there by the river to catch that and stop all of that from getting into the Penobscot River. So that is what biosolids are. It's everything we've taken out of it, but it's also, there is a big component here of our treatment system is a biological system. So there's a big component of our own biological population that we keep down at the treatment plant. So it's very active on a microbial level. There are a lot of beneficial nutrients in here. There is a lot of phosphorus, a lot of nitrogen. It has been used for a very long time as wonderful fertilizer to replace everything that we've been stripping from the land for generations. This has been highly regulated since the 80s. The EPA has regulated what we can do with this. The options, according to the EPA, are landfilling, incineration, or land application, returning it back to the land, which has always been the preferred disposal outlet for this until now. So since the 80s, that's been our options. That's still officially the options on a federal level. Rules have changed. This has always been highly screened. We sample, we analyze, because we know that it's not just, you know, nature in here. There's also everything else that we interact with as humans every day. We test it for heavy metals. We check for lead. We check for mercury. There's traces of everything that humans interact with in here. And we leave it up to our regulatory authorities to say how much of every little thing is safe and how much is not safe. So it's always been highly regulated, very scrutinized, constantly analyzed. And those things have changed as science has progressed and as we've learned of new things. And one of the hot topics that has been on the agenda for the last 10 years really has been the PFAS, or forever chemicals. And these are compounds that we are awash in every day, and most things we do, we're all sitting here essentially bathed in these compounds right now. Science hasn't really landed anywhere on which kinds of PFAS compounds are safe, which ones are not safe. There are thousands of variations of these compounds. There is a consensus that at least a couple of them are quite concerning from a health standpoint. As far as how concerning, again, the science is, they just haven't, on a worldwide level, agreed on what is safe, what is not. And so the result of that is different countries, different states have all come up with their own rules and regulations on what to do with this stuff, because it ends up in here. everything we touch and interact with ends up in here. The state of Maine in 2023 took the most strict legislation when it comes to biosolids, and they banned land application altogether, regardless of how much PFAS was in these biosolids. They started screening for biosolids probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years before that. So we all started screening to see what was in there. Bangor was high to begin with. So Bangor, long before they enacted that ban, already started landfilling all of our biosolids. Now, most of the wastewater treatment plants in the state of Maine are not high. They have background levels. They have levels that you would find in your living room in their biosolids. But Maine decided to ban all land application of all of those biosolids. So even though some biosolids were already starting to divert to the landfill, pretty suddenly, all of them were required to go to landfill. Essentially like that. And we all know what kind of position our landfills are in with capacity. I mean, it was just adding to an already problematic capacity issue at landfills. So that's kind of where we've been recently. Now, Bangor's biosolids are high in PFAS. I mentioned that. We volunteered to partner with DEP to do a study to find out why. We had an idea that they were high in part because Pine Tree Landfill in Hamden is connected to our system. So all of the leachate, all of the water that trickles through that landfill and is captured comes to Bangor. Again, we are protecting the Penobscot River from receiving that leachate. So we're cleaning that leachate. What we found though, in fact, was the majority of our PFAS is coming from the contamination at the old Dow Air Force Base, mainly from their big network of old sewer lines that are private lines that they own, and the groundwater infiltrates into there. So we already know that our biosolids are not a candidate for land application. Even if the laws were changed, even if they came up with screening levels, these are never gonna be spread on someone's farm, for example. But we are running out of options. So in Maine, back in 2023, when that law was passed, in combination with another law that impacted landfill operations, we came to a crisis point where all of this came to a head. And one day we were told that Casella couldn't pick up our biosolids. Now, the reason that this is a problem is because if these aren't picked up, depending on the weather, we have between about 2 or 3 days and 10 days before this ends up in the river. It has to come out of the system and it needs to go somewhere. So that was definitely probably the biggest panic I've ever had in this industry, when I got a phone call saying they couldn't pick them up. It's never happened. In over 50 years, it's never happened. But they need to go somewhere, and they're not gonna stop coming. As far as magnitude, we remove between 5,500 and 6,000 tons of this every year. This is a lot of biosolids that needs to go somewhere. Currently, we're in a situation where Juniper Ridge, their capacity right now is expected to be full in their current state around 2028. They have applied for an expansion. That expansion, I'm sure many of you are aware, is held up in litigation. But even if they got that expansion, that landfill is expected to be filled without the ability to expand any further in 2040. So we're talking 14 years, and 14 years in this industry is no time at all. Other options in the state of Maine that we've explored, there are very few. There is potentially Norridge Walk. They're building some dryers to be able to dry this stuff before they landfill it. That's the only way operationally that they could put that in there. This is not stable in a landfill, so it needs to be mixed with a lot of other bulky material in order to keep that landfill stable. You can't just pile this up into a big hill. There have actually been deaths in that industry from landfills being constructed without taking this wet waste into consideration and having those slopes shear off and collapse. So Norwich Walk can only take it if it's dried. Now, this is, we de-water it as much as we can at the plant, so it looks pretty dry, but it's still 75% water. It's only 25% solids. We talked to Norwich Walk, they should be getting the dryers online this year, but the cost for Bangor's biosolids to go down there is already gonna be more than what we currently pay for disposal before you even add in transportation down there, where our transportation is already included going to Juniper Ridge. On the last page of the memo, I also just gave you an indication of what has been happening with the cost of disposal. So since 2021, the cost has essentially doubled. And that is one of our biggest line items for our department. We're talking $800,000 now, where it used to be a $300,000 to $400,000 line item. And that doesn't look to be getting any better anytime soon. The other thing about Norwich Walk, if Bangor doesn't end up signing on with them at any point, is Norwich Walk is a privately owned landfill. They're a for-profit. They can take biosolids from out of state. And essentially every other state in New England, with the exception of, well, even New Hampshire's talking about it in their legislative session right now, are looking like they're gonna follow suit with the land application ban. So they're all going to be looking for landfills to put this stuff in. They'll be willing to, there are already many treatment plants in these bigger cities that are willing to pay the premium to have them shipped out of state. So we're just at a point where there is a finite capacity to dispose of this in the next decade. And we've got to start thinking about other alternatives. Now, council did approve a biosolids drying study, so we do have $100,000 reserved to do that. The reason I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet is because of a few reasons, but more out of curiosity, because Portland had already started in on that. Lewiston Auburn already started in on that, and it's becoming pretty apparent that it is not economical for individual facilities to create their own dryers. As an example, Portland right now is looking at building a facility that would take their solids. It would be, the capacity would be 80% Portland solids, and then there'd be another additional 20% to offer to some of their surrounding communities. And the price tag is 200 to 250 million. And to make that work, based up, even Lewiston Auburn, who already has digesters, they're looking at 15 million. And to make that work for, a place like Bangor, on the backs of ratepayers, only to dry it to the point that it's easier to landfill, then you still have to haul it and dispose of it at a landfill. Just doesn't appear to be feasible at this time. So, I mean, I'm gonna leave you with that. We're gonna keep talking about it. I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to see it, to know what we're talking about, and to ask any sort of high-level questions right now before we start getting into nitty-gritty.
How much are we importing from other states?
In Maine,
Yes,
so the Juniper Ridge landfill is not allowed to import from other states. The Norwich Walk landfill, it's because it's a matter of commerce law. And there's really, as far as I know, nothing that can be done about that. So they
no
seem
state
to,
legislation that can be done.
right, because of the commerce laws. It's a commodity coming across state lines, essentially. It's been discussed at length in the legislative committees. They seem to be, offering Maine communities some capacity as they plan to get these dryers up and running. But like I said, well, so far, we ended up renewing with Casella, Portland, and Lewiston. So Portland's the biggest producer of biosolids. Bangor's the second largest. And then Lewiston, Auburn, and all three communities declined to do business with them. for multiple reasons. First and foremost, cost.
What percentage of our biohazard comes from Herman and Hamden?
Biosolid.
Biosolid.
So Hamden, about 8%, but Hamden pays for 8% of all of the capital costs for the treatment plant, and they pay for their flow proportion cost of biosolids. So it doesn't cost Bangor anything to dispose of Hamden's biosolids. And Herman is very similar. Herman's closer to like 1.5% of our total biosolids.
Well, thank you. That's eye-opening, I guess.
Did just have one question if you don't
Sure.
mind. So this is a conversation that's been going on in Augusta for a number of years now, and but besides the expansion of Juniper Ridge, and besides talking about the dryers, has the strategy at all in Augusta started to formulate around the idea that we as individual municipalities, it's just not feasible for us to take this on, and that the state is gonna step in with some leadership? Or have they come to that realization yet, or are they still tiptoeing around that?
Yeah, so I've been heavily involved through the Maine Water Environment Association with the legislative, all of the legislative action related to this, and also working pretty closely with the DEP commissioner. We've been, so there is a bill being proposed, LD 25, for a $50 million bond to go toward wastewater treatment plant infrastructure, which the intention for that is to go toward like a drying facility, which we all assume would probably be Portland, because that's where the bulk of the biosolids are in the state of Maine, and they have the longest haul to get to Juniper Ridge. Aside from that, but $50 million is not going to touch this crisis for the state. If we were talking about drying all of the biosolids, it would have to be regional facilities. It would have to probably be 2. There's been a lot of investigation into what that would look like. We're probably talking 500 million in order to make that happen. So 50 million is just a drop in the bucket. And so what we've been trying to project to them is we need to continue to be having these conversations for alternative methods, alternative disposal. There still is no feasible way to destroy PFAS. So we need to have a stakeholder group with landfill operators, with DEP, with, you know, other groups like Defend Our Health, you know, agricultural owners who've been maybe impacted by PFAS, you know, get everybody to the table to first admit that this is a problem and lay out what potential options are. We haven't really gotten very much buy-in to creating that stakeholder group, so we are in the process of potentially pushing that through as a piece of legislature.
Okay. How much conversation have and it's okay if it's been minimal, that's fine. I'm just saying that if we do need to have legislation to go forward to the city, and to the capital, and we do need subject matter expertise to be accompanied with this legislation, I don't think anyone on this council is going to have an issue with that. It does beg the question, though, how many concerted efforts are being made by these other municipalities saying the same thing, but our voices are just being fractured at this point? Because I feel even if somehow we were in pie in the sky land and we were able to get $500 million for the entire state to develop these dehydration facilities, how long does it take to even implement those facilities? I mean, because you are right in saying that 14 years is really not that much time. I mean, it already takes like at least a third of that time to just develop the plan to execute it. And then with all the haphazards that come into executing a plan, we might have to adjust fire. And then what happens then? So I can only speak for myself, but whatever you need in order to get the support that you need in Augusta, just let me know what I can do to help, because this is just gonna continue to get worse and worse and worse unless we have actual state organized, municipally organized efforts around this. And this might even be something that we need to bring up to MMA as well.
I know we have to move on, but I had one question for you. What happens to PFAS if they're incinerated? Does it become airborne?
Well, if they are incinerated, so most of the research shows that yes, they become airborne. And in fact, some of the longer chain ones will actually turn into shorter chain, which are more concerning from a health perspective if you incinerate them. So that's another reason why a lot of sludge or biosolids incinerators are closing down. They've reached a point where they need significant capital investment to be able to continue, and for the most part, regulatory uncertainty prevents that, because it's assumed that air quality is going to also start imposing limits. So it really is looking more and more like landfill is the only option, and potentially drying that might extend the life of the landfill because you won't need to bring in so much other bulky waste to mix with it. But it's still, the end game is it is just landfilling until that landfill is full. State of Maine produces 88,000 wet tons per year of biosolids.
Thank you for that presentation. Next up is Jefferson Davis, Maine DOT opioid agreement.
All right, this is not as exciting, but this is just an agreement between the state, the DOT, and the city for an overweight permit. These are pretty typical in their pavement projects that they do every year with us. And we're just asking for approval to go to full council, a motion to go to full council for approval for city manager to sign. This one is specifically for Route 2 out of Hammond Street. They'll be paving that segment from the intersection of Alden Road out of Hammond Street towards Herman Town Line to where we stopped paving last year. So again, this is just an agreement that the city manager usually signs with them for an overweight permit, which allows the contractors, when they haven't selected the contractor, but allows that contractor who they select to get their equipment to mobilize to the site. There's a state statute that has a certain weight limit when it comes to DOT projects, and most of the time these excavators and equipment are over that limit, so that's why we do this. So we're just looking for a motion to go to full council for that.
Any questions on this? Councilor Leonard?
I was just gonna make a motion authorizing manager Lear to execute an agreement with MDOT on overweight construction vehicle.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. Any concerns? We will see this on full council next meeting. Yeah, we have another presentation by Jefferson Davis, draft SS4A demonstration project, Hammond and Union Street intersection.
Yep, so this is a project in conjunction with Bax and a couple of their consultants, VHB and James Passy Consultant, for SS4A demonstration, which means Safe Streets for All. And we work with Bax and DOT to look at a lot of our roadways and intersections. This one has been on the list for quite a while. It's the intersection of Hammond and Union Street and the fifth leg, which is 4th Street. So this project is just a demonstration, and if you go to page 8, it'll show you what we're planning. So the big ticket item here is temporary closing off 4th Street from that intersection. We do that with barricades and delineator posts, the flexible posts that you see out, that cars can actually hit them and they pop back up. But part of this also is extending or shortening the crosswalks for pedestrians closing off across from Fourth Street, then access drive, that's not needed. Lengthening curbs and just, again, this is all demonstration. We've done this quite a few times out here. On Franklin Street, we narrow the crosswalks with the post. We've done it throughout the city, but this is just another one. The goal of this is to get it out there temporarily, do a study before it goes out, do a study during, do a study after, get all that data and see if closing Fourth Street and shortening these up will actually have any beneficial effect on the dangerous intersection. So again, this is just an update for the project. The plan would be to put it out in the spring, have it through the summer and fall, and then go from there.
So you don't-
Came in, so I asked
There
for.
may be action on it.
No,
You're just
but
letting
this
us know that it's going to happen.
Just a quick question on this intersection. Is this still the most, is this the intersection that has the most traffic, collisions in the city?
No, this is not. It is I think it is a high cross location.
It
It is not the most dangerous intersection,
Okay.
but
Did you know what that is off the top of your head?
I believe that's up Stillwater.
So,
I can,
okay,
it's either Stillwater or Broadway one. There's a couple that are right in line with
Yeah.
that, but I don't have.
okay, no, this one's been very bad. I'll definitely be interested to see how this, goes. Thank you.
Yeah, so since I've been here, there have been complaints from pedestrians, crossing the Fourth Street leg. People come down the hill and just turn. And so it's been, right now, I think we did put a no right turn sign on there. We did put a blank out sign, but, this will certainly help, I believe. That's.
Thank you.
The information that you put in your presentation said 2015, there were 69 crashes. Do we not have it updated on what that is, or?
I don't have that in front of
Going
me
in 2000?
for what. I don't know why
Just on Hammond
VHB,
and Union.
I'm not sure why
Okay.
VHB for 2015 there.
Okay,
It might have been just high crash year, so they used the highest one they found.
thank you.
Last up, a public infrastructure discussion with Jefferson Davis and Amanda Smith.
All right, so Council Chair Hawes has brought this up a little bit to maybe start talking about public infrastructure and maybe how we capital plan and move forward. So I didn't write a formal memo. I thought tonight we could just begin the discussion. If you have questions and want more information, Amanda and I can go back. Whatever you're looking for, we can come back with a more formal memo and presentation. This is just to start that. I think, and I'll just to clarify, maybe how we do some capital planning for public infrastructure. One, public infrastructure is a broad term here. We have roadways, sidewalks, sewer infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure, which includes all the catch basins and all the sewer manholes. We also have all of our traffic lights, the street lights. We have 79 in the city of Bangor. Way traffic signals work in the city, the DOT owns them, but we maintain them. We have a maintenance agreement with the state that they give us. I think when it first started, they give us $1,500 per signal. It's gone up every year, and we do assessments on those. But with that, so we have the traffic signals, plus all of our buildings that we have, all the parking facilities we have. So I think the goal of tonight was maybe to talk about more of the sewer infrastructure and kind of how we go about doing assessment of that and how we capital plan for that. And Amanda and I are here to answer any questions, but the number one way we do our capital plan and sewer infrastructure is through our consent decree. That dictates, pretty much what we do. We have room in there through our assessments of the sewer lines, to kind of pick and choose slightly on how that, which is our top priority, but that dictates what we do. And that has since 91, and it will forever. So unfortunately, that's how that goes. But we do have a subsection of that, we have a small projects program, which has been highly successful. Which I think, started in 2014, something around that. Where we, the council allots, some nice funding for that. Of course, we would always want more, but, every year, Amanda's crew, videos a high percentage of these lines that we have. And we use her crew plus my crew are all NASCO certified, which is a pipe assessment certification. So we have dedicated people that review that, and that helps prioritize those small projects. Some of the more critical ones that we can handle. We just put that out to bid. We do a yearly, bi-yearly contract, biannual contract with that. I think in the past it's been 3 years, but and we have a contractor on staff, and for the whole fiscal year, we keep them busy doing all these small projects. That's been a great benefit to the city, and we hope that continues. So that's kind of just. I'm gonna grab my drink real quick, sorry. But that's kind of where we're at with the topic today.
And that really addresses the sewer lines themselves, and then when it comes to the treatment plant, that's all done through evaluation that is ongoing, that evaluates, all of the major equipment. We have a very expensive treatment plant down there, and all of those pieces of equipment are evaluated individually based on their remaining life left. We also look at whether or not there's redundancy. So if that piece fails, is there a way around that piece? In order to prioritize what projects we bring to you for funding every year. And we also look at the consequence of the failure. If that piece of equipment fails, what is that consequence going to be to the city, be it environmentally or financially, through fines or both? So that goes through a whole separate system for prioritizing capital. And then both the treatment plant needs and what the consent decree is forcing us to address when it comes to the CSOs, and what we're finding out in the sewer system that just needs attention. Those all are sort of coming out of the same sewer ratepayer bucket and need to be prioritized against each other.
That's only one facet of our public infrastructure that we have to capital plan for. The other side, of course, public works and the roadways. Just if the council doesn't know, if this is kind of a subset of, if I'm okay to talk about roadways, or do you want to stay with sewer? I don't want to jump around too much, but okay. So public works, we have a program called Biolytics. So it's actually cameras on the trucks that drive around all the roadways, and it does a conditions assessment of the pavement. That's how public works they'll break down their the priority list that they do. And then they'll send that to every other department and say, do you have any sewer projects here? Do you have any other type of projects? And we all meet and kind of get the priority list to go. But the condition assessment is actually done through the Biolytics program, which rates, when it comes to pavement, it's a flexible pavement. So what that means is when your tire load hits every tire rotation hits that pavement, it actually does flex a little bit. And that load is distributed not in the pavement itself, but it takes it to the sub base. And that's where the load is distributed. So unlike concrete, the load hits concrete and then it just goes vertically. But the asphalt pavement does actually flex. So we call it, it does move a little bit, and every type of crack tells you a story of what's happening either in the sub base or in that structure itself. So that's what that's looking at. You have block crack in, alligator crack in, your lineal cracks, all that. So and each one tells a different story of how, if that sub base is any good or if the structure itself is bad. So that's how that kind of plays out. I don't think a lot of people actually know that we actually have a program like that. It's something similar to what DOT uses. And then, I talked about public parking infrastructure, our parking garages. We have engineering consultants that do regular condition assessments of those, and then we capital plan from that. The Pickering Square garage, is an ongoing project. Every year it needs something. But just the age of that garage and just the way it was constructed back in the eighties of what they thought was gonna be a long lasting garage, turns out it wasn't. So that's just a yearly project that we always have to do for that. And that's kind of typical for all parking garages in the state of Maine because of our salt use and being next to the ocean and rivers and stuff like that. So I'm kind of bouncing around, but you know, the point of this was just to start the discussion, get an idea of what you want to see in the future, and then we can come back and go from there.
This covered a lot of what I had in mind as far as how you did your planning for certain things. I know several years back, the big thing was pump stations. And we were finding out that many of them needed to be gone and something replaced. So it just struck me then, well, how do they monitor these so you can plan ahead so you're not getting hit? Now, these, when you share a project with your people in water, for example, is that a shared cost product as well? Or?
Stormwater or the water district?
Water district.
So a lot of times what we will do in our big capital projects, you know, one of the largest ones we've done in the past 10, 15 years, the State Street, Exchange Street, Harlow Street project, where we did pretty much the entire sewer subsection down there. We will team with the water district because they're in the same boat as we are. They have aging water lines that are continuously breaking. So we do team together, and that shares the cost of the contractor mobilization. It shares cost of rebuilding the road and, you know, all the traffic control, erosion control, all that. We end up sharing all those costs. So it does help the city and the water district. You know, the way we break that out is, you know, if our project is 75% of the fee, of the contractor's fee, we'll take 75% of those large ticket items, of, you know, the lump sum items is what we call them, and the water district will take 25. That's just kind of how it happens sometimes. So we do look to team with them, and we are currently working with them right now for Cumberland Street. That's a project that will be out that we're going to replace the sewer, storm, the water lines, and all that. So we usually have multiple. I mean, we meet all the time with the water district, but we do have, you know, a yearly sit down with all the departments and the water district for capital planning purposes. So.
One more question, now leave it alone. The wine development.
Yeah.
Is your team down there often, just in case, or?
We are down there right now because the Y is moving the city sewer. So we are inspecting that. Anytime anybody touches any of the city infrastructure, we like to have somebody on staff be there for that. And then there are, you know, the main sewer trunk line through the Y project, where Second Street Park, they relocated that, but they're also reversing First Street because it used to come down Barker. Now we're reversing that. So we do have an inspector out there daily with them for that. And when they do the stormwater trunk line, we'll have an inspector there also.
And that goes all the way to West Broadway? When all is said and done?
The
line that they're working on?
right now it's only to Second Street.
Okay.
Yeah, just for this project.
Okay. Thank you. No.
Any other questions? Do you have anything else for us tonight?
No, going forward, I mean, just let us know if you want a formal memo or something from, you know, and I can, you know, a lot of times I haven't been bringing the assessment conditions of the parking garages, but you know, always bringing phones here. We are redoing the assessment right now, so.
Okay.
Wonderful. With that, I believe infrastructure is adjourned at 7:17 p.m.